So I'm a colorectal surgeon, and I've been in Salisbury for 15 years. We have had problems with the gastroenterology service for probably a decade in Salisbury. For instance, gastroenterology, endoscopy, and surgery were in 3 different directorates. And so in April of this year, the directorates altered, and we moved gastroenterology and endoscopy into the surgical directorate, and then formed the GI unit. That was partly in response to a report from the Royal College of Physicians, where they had come and visited, look at the gastroenterology service, and made a recommendation that a GI unit was formed, and that it was initially led by the GI surgical team, and it was me that was put in place to look after that. At the time that I started, ID Medical had come along and provided us with 2 very good, long-standing locum consultants who had become part and parcel of the team delivering our services here, and there were certain elements of that worked extremely well. So we had cover for our ERCP service. We had provision of outpatient services, which were really, really struggling at the time. And we had some degree of cover for our inpatients and our referrals. The alteration in numbers, which has transpired recently, has made a significant difference. Yes, I mean, I think we sat down and said, well, if you look at the numbers of patients that we have, we should have somewhere between 5 and 6 consultants. Seems unreasonable to try to recruit to those posts when actually we're only running with 3.4 working time equivalents, and therefore the sensible plan was to say, well, let's mirror what we would like to do in the future, and then we can look to develop the service beyond that. So we had a somewhat peripatetic service with multiple different locums coming in for short periods of time, and people understandably work in different ways, and having different people come created some degree of confusion for the service, and that's not a criticism of those individuals, just more the reality of multiple people being involved in patients, individual patients' care. So one of the advantages we've got now is that we have a more joined up IBD service. So we have 2 people responsible for the delivery of IBD care, particularly including the prescription of biologics. And they are then interacting with the single band 6 that we've got at the moment. I think one of the things that's done, it's enabled us to go out to advert for another nurse specialist. So we've gone out for an 8A IBD nurse specialist who would be an independent or relatively independent practitioner, and we've now got somebody interested in that post. And the fact that we have a more resilient workforce than we had earlier in the year is probably one of the reasons that we've been successful in having applicants, whereas previously we hadn't had any at all. Very significant, enabled us to establish the model of working that I would like in the future. So we've increased our capacity in outpatients and endoscopy by between 5 and 6 sessions a week, which has a significant impact on our ability to catch from where we were historically in terms of gastro clinics, but also where we are currently the catch up in endoscopy from the COVID pandemic. 5 to 6 clinics is probably 60 to 70 patients a week who are being seen earlier than they would be, and the equivalent amount of endoscopy is probably 35 to 40 patients who are having an endoscopy. I think patients being seen in a timely fashion is critical to outcomes, in that you make a diagnosis earlier, and the earlier you make a diagnosis, the earlier you can start treatment, and that has an impact potentially in terms of lifespan if you diagnose a GI cancer late, or it has problems in association with quality of life if you diagnose, for instance, inflammatory bowel disease. If the disease progresses and is more aggressive, it's more difficult for early treatment, and therefore you may end up having an operation that you wouldn't have required. So I think the fact that we are now having a significant number of extra patients who are being seen in clinic and who are being seen in endoscopy and having their investigation is only to the good of the local patients in Salisbury. Before they started in Salisbury, I had no knowledge of ID Medical at all. I think since they have moved into the same directorate and we have had greater involvement with each other, it's only been of benefit, because the more you know about people and the way in which they work, the easier it is to work together. There are, for instance, Mohammed Islam, I think is an excellent clinician. He's really enthusiastic. He sort of leads for ID Medical in terms of the interaction that I have with you, and he is an absolute credit to the company, and we'd be delighted to have him, if I'm honest. Yes, they have. What I've been impressed with the degree of interaction that I've had with you guys. I mean, the first 3 months of the first lockdown were obviously very challenging for everyone, and there was little in the way of interaction. I think everyone's getting used to how the new ways of working and doing things remotely. And I was finding my feet in terms of what the role held. But I've been really impressed since we started talking with the frequency with which that's happening, and the responsiveness to issues that have been raised, whether it's times that sessions are finishing, the numbers of patients being seen in clinic, etc. The backroom team, if that's the right word, have been excellent, and the guys here who are working for ID Medical clearly seem to be very happy with the company that they work for. Which I think says quite a lot, really. Responsive, responsible, and capable. I think the responsible, they will, so if I send an email, I sent an email once when I was on call, and I got a response. I was on call over the weekend, and I got a response which I wasn't expecting. I kind of sent it on a Saturday, expecting to get a reply on Monday, and got a response on Saturday evening, which was slightly surprising. So they've been available, and then when I've made comments or I have had concerns, which there haven't been many of, but there's been a responsible action by the guys in terms of looking into things and validating or not validating what I've said. They can, but ultimately it'll be the more successful they are, the sooner it would be that we wouldn't need ID medical services. Is the reality? My vision is that we have 6 gastroenterologists with an acute gastroenterologist of the week. That we do all of our GI bleeders in-house, including out of hours. That we have opportunities then for education and for research and audit, which I don't think there's an opportunity for realistically at the moment. And that we have a department that the gastroenterologist can be proud of, but that the hospital can be proud of, which I think has not been the case for a decade. So when we have a meeting, it's a team event at ID Medical. So Farhad's involved, your CEO is involved in the last meeting. I mean, it's not left to chance. Everybody's involved in endeavouring to make sure the process works for both us and for you. And I have been pretty impressed with it. Everyone that I've come into contact from the company, it's a pretty robust service.